All right, so the first one we are going to go over is number 2. The main, common issue with number 2 was people did more than the question was asking for. I had a lot of people write an equation for this one. It wasn't asking for that. It just says find the slope of the tangent line at x equals -4. That's all that it was asking for. Now, I didn't take off if you went further and wrote an equation. But on the AP exam, they will, because that means you didn't understand what the question was asking. So you don't want to do more than what you have to. So it just said find the slope of the tangent line, that's the derivative, at -4. So we're going to find the derivative, and then we're going to plug in -4. So this function is x to the -2. So I'm going to write it that way. And when we do power rule, the -2 is going to come down, and then we subtract 1 from the power. So it becomes more negative. That'll be -3. And then I can write that as -2 over x cubed. And then we're going to plug in -4. So -4 cubed would be -64. And the negatives are going to cancel, and that would reduce to 1 over 32. And that was all you had to find. You did not need to write an equation. Just the slope of the tangent line, that means the derivative at -4. And then the next one we're going to do is number 3, which was really similar. It said find the derivative at 0. So we're going to find the derivative and then plug in 0. So derivative of just x would be 1. Minus exponential is itself, and then you have to chain on the derivative of 6x, which would be 6. And so if we plug in 0 to that, we're going to have 1 minus e to the 0 would be 1, and then times 6. So we have 1 minus 6, which would be -5. All right, and then the next one I want to make sure we go over is number 9. Now, number 9 did ask for an equation, so we are going to write out the whole thing. So this function is x sine of x, and then I gave you the whole point. It was pi 0. We just need the slope. So slope comes from the derivative. We want the derivative at pi. That is our point of tangency. So we're going to find the derivative, and then we're going to plug in pi. So this one is a product rule. So that is the first function, which is x, derivative of the second, derivative of sine is cosine, plus the second function times derivative of the first, and derivative of x is just 1. And so if we plug in pi, okay, I'll plug in pi right here. So that first part would just be pi. And then we have cosine of pi. So let me draw this on our unit circle. Pi would be right here. And the point is -1, 0. So if we're doing cosine, that means cosine is the x value. That would be -1. And then plus, now we're going to do sine of pi. Sine is the y value, so that would be 0. So this entire second part just ends up going away, and our slope would be -pi. So this is the point, this is the slope, and I'm just going to put that together into an equation. It would be y minus 0 equals the slope, and then x minus pi. And then the last one I want to make sure we go over, and then I'll take your questions, is 16c. It says find the derivative of f of g of x. So you have to write out the rule and then evaluate it. And this one said at x equals 2. So this is a chain rule. It's going to be derivative of the outside, so f prime, and then leave g alone, and then chain on the derivative of the inside. And then we're going to plug in 2. So let me pull up the chart here. First thing we're going to do is g of 2, And then whatever we get, we're going to do f prime of that. So, all right, so g of 2. I have too many papers on here. All right, g of 2 is 4. So I know that this part is 4. And then I'm going to do f prime of 4. So f prime of 4 is -7. So this first part is going to be -7. Sorry, it's hard for me to show 2 papers on here at the same time. All right, and then g prime of 2. Again, the x value we're plugging in is 2. So we want g prime of 2, which would be 1. So -7 times 1, which is -7. And then I'll open it up to you guys, whatever you want to ask about. And I apologize, someone just put in the chat, looking at your test, let me make it available again. I'm sorry, I always close it after everybody's done. So I'm going to go back and make that available so that you can see it. And I made a new folder called past units because the homepage was getting like kind of cluttered. So if you go on Schoology and then into past units, I just published the Unit 3 test again so you can see on there. But if you want to just go ahead and type in the chat if there are any others that you would like for me to go over for you. All right, so number 11. All right, so this was just find the derivative. So for the first part, derivative of square root is 1 over 2 square root. There just happens to be a 3 there. So it will be 3 over 2 square root. And then this part, I'm going to write that as 8x to the -4th. And then we will do the power rule. So when you multiply the 4 down, or excuse me, the -4 down, that would be -32. And then you subtract 1 from the power. So it will make it -5. And then I'm just going to fix the negative exponent. This first part's going to stay the same, but this will get written as -32 over x to the 5th. So just remember, when you have a negative exponent like that, when you subtract 1, it becomes more negative. All right, and then someone else asked for 16D. So 16D says find the derivative of the inverse at x equals 3. So I'm going to make charts for f and f prime, and then for the inverse and the inverse derivative. And whatever lands right here is going to be my answer. And I want this evaluated when x is 3, so that's where 3 is going to go. And so since these are inverses, if 3 is the input here, it's going to be the output there. And now I have to pull up the chart and start looking for where that is on the chart. So I'm looking for where f is 3. So here's our chart. And where f is 3 is right here. So when f is 3, my point is at 2. So it's going to be 2, 3. And then the derivative is -8. So I have the points 2, 3, and then the derivative is -8. I'm going to put that in my chart. And so if this is the point 2, 3, this would be 3, 2. And then you just reciprocate the derivative. So your final answer is -1/8. And then someone else asked for 8. So, I know you guys can't see them because it's being sent to me privately. Where is she getting these from? I'm just getting it from the chat. right, so this one is f of x equals 2x squared minus 8. And it says find the inverse derivative at 0. So this is similar to the one that we just did, except we don't have a chart. So we're going to have to actually like work it out by hand. But gosh, I don't like this notation. It always looks weird. There we go. All right, so we want to evaluate this at 0. And so if 0 goes there, it is also going to go here. And so we're going to set this function equal to 0. And so we're going to add 8 and then divide by 2 and then square root. Now, typically you get plus and minus, but I wrote in the problem x is bigger than 0, so we want the positive 2. So if that is 2, 0, this will be 0, 2. And then the last thing I need is the derivative. So I'm going to do the derivative of that function, which would be 4x. And we're going to plug in 2. So if I plug in 2 to that, I'm going to get 8. And then the reciprocal is 1/8. And then someone else asked for 7. This is going to have to be the last one, okay? If you have other questions, I can go over them during office hours. All right, so 7, it says find the instantaneous rate of change. That means the derivative of this function at pi over 4. So we're going to find the derivative, and then we're going to plug in pi over 4. So it's chain rule. The derivative of ln is rational, so it's going to be 1 over whatever's inside, so 1 over cosine. And then you have to chain on the derivative of cosine, which is negative sine. And so this would be written negative sine of x over cosine of x. And I had a lot of people write that as negative tangent of x, which was awesome. Sine over cosine is tangent. It's fine to leave it like this, though. That's okay. And then we're going to evaluate that at pi over 4. So on our unit circle for pi over 4, both sides are going to be square root of 2 over 2. Sine is the y value, cosine is the x value. In this case, they're the same thing, though. And anything over itself is going to be 1. It's just we're going to make it negative. So it would look like this, which is a gigantic mess. But again, anything over itself is 1. So negative 1 is your final answer to the whole thing.